for another episode. All right, Combat Deviants, we're back here on the Belly Up Sports Network. We got a special one for you this evening, this afternoon, wherever you're joining from us, regardless if it's live on the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter feed, or if you're catching it on the audio version. This is the Fighter Spotlight tonight, and we are being joined by none other than UFC Flyweight, the Maverick one herself, Fear the Maverick, Miss Miranda Maverick. How are we doing this evening, my friend?
I'm doing great, Just got done with 3 trainings as of today. Last couple days of hard training before I go out to Vegas for my fight next week.
Well, not only that, I saw that you went out on a little hike with your boyfriend and pushed him down a hill, kind of seemed.
No, more like he scooted down it. It was a lot steeper than it looks on the video. We did go on a hike, and it was like cliffs, and I'm used to running down bluffs and stuff from being back home on the farm. He's not so much, and we're both scared of heights, so it was funny.
I mean, shout out to Pete, man. I mean, everyone just loves him, and I got to tell you, I had one of my friends, before we start the interview, a little off topic, one of my friends was messaging me saying, "Who is that?" I was like, "That's Miranda's boyfriend." I had to send her the Instagram. I had to go on a whole hunt. So, congratulations with a good-looking boyfriend, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. It's husband, actually, but thank you.
I'll make sure to tell her. All
right. That's okay. Lots of people, the more compliments he gets, the more it compliments me, right?
Exactly.
That's
so jumping into all of this,
always compliment each other. That's the whole thing, right?
Right, exactly.
You're a Maverick, though. That's exactly perfect segue, Steve. You're a Maverick, which means kind of independent, which you also have a sister as well, correct? So you're really not that independent, and your sister also trains, right? And with the brothers, the Diazes, the Shevchenkos, I mean, what separates you guys as one of the big siblings, but also being Mavericks? I mean, together you have to be independent from the sibling rivalries, right? So
that's
what makes you guys special?
My sister's always said we're going to be the next Shevchenko sisters, and she always jokes that I'm the oldest, so I'm going to be Antonina, right? And she's going to be the best, and she's going to be the one that's the champ, which, could be true. I really do. I hope she's more successful than me. We are competitive in a sense of against the world, but never really against each other. I'm trying to help her get as far as she can as well. She just got another fight scheduled, so hopefully it'll be 3-0 by the end of this month. The week after my fight, she fights, so that'll be exciting to watch.
Now I gotta reach out to her, see if I can get her to come on next Friday.
There we go. Maybe she can do that. She might be watching my fight, so you might have to get a little bit before that. But
so when I interviewed Valentina, and I got to get your opinion on this, she said she's more nervous before her sister fights than her own fight. Are you kind of the same? Is your sister kind of the same?
Absolutely. I'm more than the same. So my dad's always been in my corner, right? And I always make fun of him because he acts like he's going to have a freaking panic attack before my first fights. Now he's way different, but my first 5 to 10 fights, he was just always a nervous wreck. I always joked with him I wasn't going to have him in my corner anymore if he wouldn't quit freaking out. And then I had to corner my sister in that first one that you just showed. And it was my first time cornering for her and first time coaching her at all, really, and first time having someone that close to me do anything of that, importance to me. And to me, I get all the blame if she doesn't like it. I get all the blame if she gets hurt just because she wouldn't be a part of it if it weren't for me. I'm fully aware of that. And she's kind of using my coattails to get where she's at, which I'm totally fine with as well. And so I'm sitting there in the back helping her warm up, and I'm like breathing hard. And my dad's just looking at me giggling. And I was like, what? And he's like, now you know how it feels. And I was like, you're right, I do. And I would have to leave the room and go outside and be like, and calm down. And then as she's getting ready to walk out, I was already tearing up. I was like having tears run down my face as she's walking out, just from, it's an amazing experience to get to experience with her and be there for her. And then after she won the fight, I was just bawling. You can ask her if you do get her on the interview. I was just crying, and she was the one that wasn't crying. She was just excited. And she's like, "Why are you crying?" I was like,
she's
I
probably
don't know.
looking at you like with 10 heads, like, what the hell is wrong with you?
That's right. But she jokes, I'm always the one that's the more emotional one, and she's the angry one. So there's another thing going for her in the sport.
But it's got to be mixed emotions, right? If you're in the corner, right? Or even if you're in a fight, like you have been against Macy Barber, where you think you're winning a fight. I mean, I don't know if you thought you were or not, but a lot of us thought you won that fight. And, you know, you probably feel really good going in to get your hand raised. But then, like we saw this weekend with the judges, with Suga, a lot of people didn't agree with the judging. So what is it like when you experience something like that? It's got to be very mixed. You think you did very well, but yet you lost. So where does that leave?
It makes it harder than the real losses. I know that sounds odd, but it's almost more of a letdown. It's like you did put in your best, you tried your best, you had all this, you were about to be on your highest high, you know, cheering for yourself, and then you're up here, and then all of a sudden it's, and you're like, oh my goodness, like what just happened?
And it punches you right in the gut.
Yep, exactly. It feels like you're going to have, you know, talk about even from a money perspective, you're thinking of all these plans in your head as all those moments run through, and okay, I'm going to get this much money, I'm going to put it towards this, and then last second, it all just kind of gets ripped away. And, you know, everybody says, don't let it go to the judges. I get so angry when I hear those comments because we're the best in the world. We're fighting at the highest level. Like, we can't always take it and finish these girls. We're all at a fairly equal level. That's why we're in the UFC. Like, that's why we're meant to put on shows. If we were just go in there and finish them in a minute, what would be the point of the matchmaking? Those obviously aren't great fights to begin with if it's that easy of a fight. So the whole don't take it to the judges, we try. Believe me, we're trying to not take it to the judges. It's not like we're sitting there going, you know, let's let this last another 15 minutes. I really think I want the judges to see this one out. Like, it's the silliest thing to me.
Now, Steve, I don't mean to cut you off, but going back on my question, now you've been in also situations where you've won fights, but now you have to go back towards a rematch. And I'm sure there's rematches you want, like against Macy Barber, but you have this upcoming fight, which is a rematch that you've also won in the past. Where's your head at here, opposed to, you know, looking at other people that have had rematches that usually win and overlook their opponent? Sometimes, you know, it could be kind of crazy, but you're a sociology, psychology major. Where's your head at? And are you aware of what goes into a rematch, like in your head?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to look at it from her perspective and my own perspective, right? And kind of remove myself from the situation. And in her head, she obviously thinks it was a fluke. She thinks that she's improved more than me over time, that my striking wasn't that good, which it wasn't. I'll be honest about that. Way back when we fought, you know, it's been 3 years now since we fought. I have went to Virginia, learned Muay Thai way more than I ever knew before. Now I'm here in Colorado doing the highest level training I could ever do. I'm a totally different fighter than I was, and I think my fights in the UFC have shown that. And if she thinks I'm going to be the same person that came into that cage with her in 2019, she's sorely mistaken. But I'm not walking into this fight with the whole, I already beat her, not a big deal. I'm walking into it with, I've improved this much. I'm very confident in myself, but I also take every fight just as seriously as the last and the next. Like, I figure every fight's a title shot for me because at the end of the day, that's where I want to get to. And against her, it's no different. I'm not just training for Shanna. I'm training for Valentina. I'm training for Molly McCann, hopefully next. I'm training for all these girls in the lineup that I want to fight in the future, not just Shanna. But I will say I'm surprised she took it. I am impressed she took it, and I'm glad that she decided to be my opponent. I've been looking for a fight forever. I had a lot of people that just didn't want to fight, and I'm in this weird spot in the rankings where I'm not ranked, yet I've beat a couple of the ranked girls, and nobody really wants to fight me. So...
Steve, I don't mean to steal it.
Like the hardest thing sometimes is getting past that top 10 thing because you've beaten people in there. It's like they don't want to risk putting it in you because they don't want to lose their spot and you're not quite there, so they don't.
Yeah,
feel like
I'd say it's
enough
like
juice to get them going to.
Yeah, I'd say once I get to the top 15, I think it'll be a lot easier to find because all those ranked girls will be interested in fighting me. But now the whole excuse is, well, she's not ranked, or she's not ranked, but she's as good as the ranked girls. So I don't want to fight her if I'm not ranked. So, it goes both ways. I hope that I'm able to get the Molly McCann fight after this. She's going to fight Erin Blanchfield, which Erin beat me. And I think she's just going to maul Molly. Like, I think she'll finish her.
I love that. And speaking of it, how do you feel about this one with Shanna Young? Obviously, you said you're surprised about it, but how do you, if you could sit there and play out a perfect picture in your mind, how do you envision this fight playing out for you?
I see it being a TKO in the first minute or 2 minutes. I've been working on my striking so much. I feel like if I need to take it to the ground, there's no doubt that I can. But I plan on keeping it standing and just showing her a little bit of what I've learned here at this gym, at other gyms, and kind of show her my improvements over time, and also be able to show the whole audience, how much I'm improving, but also that I am multi-talented. It's not just grappling. It's not just striking. I've got all of it, and I come in with power and to put on a show in front of the whole division.
I like that answer a lot, because in your first fight, you won via rear naked choke, right? And this time you're saying you want to finish her via TKO. So is that like a whole thing? Like, you don't want to bring it to the ground. You want to actually strike. And a lot of fans like that. So I think this is going to give a little more energy towards it and motivation for you as well. Am I right?
Yeah. And it's not that I won't take it down. Maybe I will, but I'm hoping that just in the couple minutes I'm using to feel her out and get to where I could get a takedown, that I'm going to catch her with something. And I feel like it's definitely a possibility. I'm looking at this card and I'm thinking there's also a strong possibility I can get a bonus if I play my cards right. So I'm going to do the best I can to make that happen.
I mean, I can't say I'm surprised you're sitting there saying you got going after first, after, someone you've been training with. We just had her on recently, Courtney Cameron. As soon as I made the post this afternoon, she said in my inbox, like, yes, I love it. And when we had her on, she was mentioning that both you and your sister had been going over there. You guys been working on some things. So if she was able to put Crystal Pittman away, fairly quickly into BKFC, I can only imagine what Miranda's gonna do come UFC fight night November 5th.
Yeah, I hope so. And Courtney did a fantastic job. I was there that night, actually setting up a table with my Fear the Maverick gear, and watched Courtney just destroy her debut. It was awesome.
Now, I got to ask you something, because obviously you're talking about your father in the corner, you in the corner, people, the rematches, but people don't realize, you're watching it on TV, but you don't realize how much of an impact it makes on somebody watching, somebody that you love go in there. And, in the past, we've seen some brutal fights. What's one of the fights that you've seen in the past that really affected you emotionally, that you've seen, whether it was a teammate or somebody that you're rooting for, like even Ronda? I know your father's a huge fan of Ronda, a huge inspiration of yours as well. What has been something that has affected you in mixed martial arts that you've seen?
I'm trying to think. I try to keep a pretty open mind with that stuff. I know it's one of those things where you can get hurt. I will say it is, for some reason, harder for me to see the girls get like bloodied up, like big time, cut up. I will say my own fight.
That, though.
I know.
The doctor stoppage.
Well, I was gonna say it actually like kind of shook me a little bit, like when that happened. I guess I had never like bloodied somebody that bad. She still got pretty bad scars from it, and so like I reached out and everything afterwards, and I was like, hope you get better and everything. But anytime there's a lot of cuts and bruises to where it's just like, wow, that's gonna be not only hurt for a few months, but then that scar tissue builds back up. You get cut easier the next time. People don't realize, like, once you get cut once, you get cut again and again and again. Like, it doesn't stop. I've been very lucky in my career to not had any cuts yet on my face. Not that it won't happen someday, but I've been lucky so far and have never walked out with a serious injury. I think the times where we see people's knees go out in the middle of fights or the shin breakage, that stuff freaks me out and it scares me. Like, literally makes me be like, I don't know, maybe I won't ever throw a low kick again in a fight. So
I mean, Anderson Silva was kind of the original one, kind of for this era. Yeah. when Anderson check kick and got his leg broken. It was just like, okay, if that happens to Anderson, who was arguably at the time probably the most prolific striker in combat sports at the time, like it just makes you think about things. And then obviously with some of the recent ones we've seen. We've seen some pretty gnarly leg breaks just in this year alone. Yep. So
Yeah.
it's
So I can't think of one fight in particular, but all those kind of things just kind of freak me out. I don't like it. The knee breaks and
pushing your
the leg
boyfriend
breaks.
down mountains.
What?
Then
Oh,
stop
yeah.
pushing your boyfriend down mountains.
I'll try to remember it. I'll try not to push
all right.
too
So
hard.
there's been a couple questions that I've been asking everyone this month. Obviously, combat sports have grown so much, over the past 25, 30 years, and we're going to be pulling together some quotes from all of our interviews over the next few months. But I want to know, who's your combat sports, not just MMA, not just boxing, just combat sports. Who's your combat sports Mount Rushmore?
GSP.
So just GSP alone, that you're just going.
He's the Maverick, Steve. He's the Maverick.
GSP is by far my favorite, and I know like this isn't necessarily from his accomplishments and stuff, but Brian Stan, I respect him a lot as a human. I think he's just a fantastic person.
On my wall back there, by the way, too.
Oh yeah,
thanks for his service.
I met him when my daughter was like 6. He was doing a signing in Jersey.
That's cool.
I think the Jaspari supplement.
Yeah.
I think he was doing sponsorship with them before the sponsorship thing kind of changed for all the UFC fighters. But awesome dude. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more with Brian, because he not just didn't win titles, but he had some really fun fights in the ring, in the cage. But he also meant a lot outside, some of the announcing he did, and even his life before combat sports should also have some noteworthy things to have in there. So
exactly.
Burt Watson's number one was Randy Couture.
Okay.
No, I mean, you got the Army veteran there too. So
yeah. I'd say I like Canelo too. I know that's like boxing, but man, like the head movement and stuff that you see from him.
Not a part of combat sports?
It is. It's not MMA though. That's my point. But even him, I'd put him up there. Valentina, hopefully I face her one day, but I'd still put her there. Like, she's just amazing in my eyes. Like the come up that she had over the years and being able to stay up at the top level so long, hasn't mentally broke or shown any signs of it like a lot of people do after they've been champions for a while. And yeah, that's mine for now. Like that's just 4, but I think Ngannou could be up there too if they give him a chance to be, without all the politics involved.
Oh, yeah. Well, you bring up Valentina. I've brought up Miranda as well. I want to know, what has these girls changed about gender stereotypes when it comes to sports? Because we look at softball, they've changed the rules. We look at volleyball, basketball, they changed the rules. But in mixed martial arts, we have not changed the rules for you guys, right? You are equal to us, correct? So what have they changed for the gender stereotypes in mixed martial arts?
Well, for one, just giving the opportunity for females to be at the highest level, right? When Ronda finally got into the UFC, I wouldn't necessarily call her my main inspiration, but she was the first female fight I watched in the UFC, was her first one against Liz Carmouche. And before that, I didn't even know women did MMA. And I remember sitting on my sofa and my dad was like, "You could do that one day." And I was like, "No, I don't want punched in the face." And he's like, "Whatever, you could be champion one day. You were raised for that." And I was like, "Nah." And then 3 years later, here I was asking if I could do MMA, But Ronda and Valentina and, Joanna, just all these girls, even Nunes and Cyborg, like, they showed that not only can they hang in there and put on performances, but that they can be some of the more entertaining fights, that they can be exciting and just as dramatic as the guys are, and that they can have bloody wars. It almost gets more emotions involved. Just like I said, I was like, man, it like hurts my feelings when the girls get bloodied. I feel like it does the same thing to the crowds. They get that much more amped when the girls are like throwing at each other, so there's that. And then the aspect that we can also be just females outside of the cage. I will say, some people hurt the stereotype, but there was always the thing of, you've got to be manly and aggressive, and you obviously like are gay and like all these different things if you are a female in mixed martial arts. And slowly but surely it's changing.
For the better part of 10 years, right?
What?
I mean, Chris Cyborg was stereotyped as a dude for the better part of 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, right.
But
I mean, look at me. I got painted fingernails over here.
Peaks and valleys, too. I'm sorry.
So what was that big moment when you actually realized that you could do something special? When your father said that to you and you were doubting yourself, what flipped the script there?
Well, I started jujitsu when I was 16, almost 17. Started going to an actual gym because we had been kind of training at home, like watching fights and trying to do moves and learned like basic stuff. And when I went to a gym, you know, I always knew I was strong, but I didn't realize like how strong I was and how talented I could be in jujitsu. Went and started competing and felt invincible basically in jujitsu, but I still didn't really want punched in the face. I didn't really like the stereotype behind it and everything. And you know, the rarity and how much money I could make if I got to this certain level and how hard that would be. And then I watched these two amateur girls fight live, and it was embarrassing. Like I got third person embarrassment from it of like, oh, that was a really bad fight. Like you took two punches and you quit. Like I've been hit harder by that by a tree limb or a cow that I've chased across the field, you know? And I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. And my coaches were like, you've never been punched in the face before. Don't say you're better, you know? And I was like, no, I know I'm better. Like, I know I can do better than that. And so I started training. I did striking for 3 weeks before I set up my first amateur fight and jumped in there, won the fight, and decided I was going to go be the best I could be.
That's absolutely inspiring because there's a lot of people that don't think this is a female sport, and like you were saying, you didn't think that you were made out for it. But you know, this past weekend we had somebody win a championship with years ago, and maybe I don't know where his mind was at the time, but on International Women's Day he tweeted out Islam Makhachev that this is not a women's sport. How do you respond to that now? And where do you think his mind was at when he said that?
I think that's a cultural thing. You know, I'm just going to be honest about it. I'm not trying to be, you know, any type of way, but over there, it's like less freedoms for women to begin with in the Middle East and stuff. And I think it's very looked down upon for a woman to kind of stand out and try to take part in anything that's not seen as a traditional role. And there's a lot of people that I've ran into, especially different religious sects, that do disagree with me doing MMA and others, and they see it as us being scantily clad when we're fighting and things of that nature. So I can see culturally where it's like disagreed upon, but they need to respect the sport aspect of it. There's other sports that are just as showy or just as whatever else, and just because it's a violent sport doesn't mean it's not for women. I think that we're fighting those stereotypes every single time that we go out there. There's more and more women from different countries and different areas of the world getting involved that are kind of shutting down those stereotypes and making it to where everyone has not only the freedom to do it, because in some countries women aren't allowed to even train it, right? But now they're getting to where the countries are backing them based on how good they're doing. And they're going to have to keep doing that, just like they do with Olympic sports.
Even France, right, Steve? France, they weren't allowing any promotions or any fights in France, correct? A couple of years ago. And now look what we got.
It's definitely a different ball game now, and you know, I agree with Miranda. No disrespect aside, that it's probably more of a cultural thing and things of that nature. Yeah, you know, obviously, women's combat sports has grown a lot over the last 10 years. You know, all the names Miranda mentioned, stay for a few, play a big part of it. I think women's boxing has grown just as much over the last handful of years. You know, it doesn't hurt having people like, Clarissa Shields and Amanda Serrano kind of spearheading, the bigger name female fighters that boxing has right now. So it's good. I love seeing all areas of combat sports on the female side kind of grow and get into a bigger market. Yeah. And you dropped that word scantily clad. I don't think I've heard that word in about 15 years. But yeah, I mean, there's aspects of what some of the female athletes have done with their platform, and like some of the fighters have OnlyFans for that spicy content. You just seen Chris Cyborg sign up as an actual, that's her sponsor, that she's doing combat sports.
A lot are now, I refuse.
But then you're even somebody, you have a Patreon account for some of your things and things, and so I think everyone does their own way of kind of
right. it's crazy.
their content to themselves, regardless if you have I guess that the freak flag, so to speak. If you have that side of you, some of the athletes have that available. You're starting to see women. I think recently we've seen what Britney Spears and Carmen Electra come out with OnlyFans accounts. So like it's just a matter of time before a lot of people this becomes a thing, and this is a part of
it. And some of the limits that people have are crazy to me. Like there are no limits to a lot of the fighters and girls out there. And what's crazier to me is how many people are willing to do it. I'm like, all you gotta do is type in on the internet and find this stuff for free, but whatever, they want certain people and get the fetishes and the exclusive stuff just for them, and like get a certain psychology behind it that makes it work. And even my dad was like, stop posting even pretty pictures on your Instagram. Like, just stop. If people are going to pay for them, just freaking go make a Patreon and do that. Like, it started off being my techniques and like my seminar content and stuff like that. Nobody wants to really see that. Everybody acts like they do, but they don't. They just want to see like pretty pictures and stuff.
Secretly in the back of everyone's mind, it's like, where's the spicy stuff?
Exactly.
Show me your feet.
I'd say you put up your feet. So I was going to tell the little story about that. So there's this Instagram called like UFC.feet or something ridiculous. And it had taken like pictures of me, Tisha, Mallory Martin, like other teammates of mine. And we're all standing in pictures, and they had taken our feet, cropped them out of pictures, and were selling them to people on Instagram, like publicly. And I was like, excuse me? Like, not only are you selling my pictures, but you're making money off of my feet. And so I was like,
my permission.
Yeah, I was like, screw it. I'm going to do it.
I can't even bet on fights when you guys are making money off my feet.
Right. And I was like, if you guys are making money off of them, I guess I can. I'm like, what's the harm in feet? You're going to see my feet in almost every post I make because I'm always barefoot doing kicking and everything else. And it's just another fetish. And I'm like, whatever. If I want to make money off of it without showing anything else, then so be it.
Got to make that money, right, Steve?
I mean, listen, everyone, granted, like the UFC has changed a lot over the last 10 years, sponsors and everything, like everything is done in a different way. So like I said, we're at this cultural change. Am I like some of the fighters that they go wherever they go with it? I mean, as Miranda mentioned, there's people who have the feet fetish. Aaron sitting there saying she made like as much as she's done in like 10 fights in the UFC in 1 year with just the feet pictures. I'm like, wait, what?
Yep.
Crazy. I'm like, that's freaking madness. There's that many weirdos in this world. Great.
Yep.
Now, when it comes to making money as well, Steve, I'm kind of queuing up something here, right? Let's get into it. Because the UFC has made some changes recently, Steve, right?
Oh yeah, yes. So we, obviously, the news over the last few weeks has kind of been some of the changes the Dana White has been making and things of that nature.
And to be honest, it hasn't personally affected me because I never bet on my own or other people's fights anyway. But it's been one of those things that's been in the back of my mind. But amusingly, I would have my dad probably bet more than anybody because he pays more attention to the fights than I do.
But like it's one of these things like Eddie was like doesn't that like some of the guys on that were or are on the roster have like betting type of things on them where like they're giving people betting advice or things of that nature or even
and it still doesn't talk.
I'm in the line of thinking like most way things works these days anyways, like can't you ask like Uncle Bob to just throw down a bet for you as it is anyways? It's
basically, but there's proof like where the money goes, but for me it's just like we still are able to have the sponsors where we can tell them what fights we're picking and all that, so it's not like it took much out other than our personal betting. And like you said, I think it's one of those things that if somebody really wanted to, they're going to get it done. It's not that big of a deal. And isn't it the same for every other professional sport? Like every other sport already has that rule. We're the last ones just because we're such a new sport. And I'm like, duh. Like I'm surprised it wasn't already.
I guess it was kind of an unspoken one at the point in time, but I guess it had to be made like a kind of officially. But we got a question in the chat for you. We got to go back to the pay-per-view. How do you feel about the Sugar Show decision? Versus Yan. Do you feel that they got that right, or are you?
I definitely thought Jan won. I know that Sugar Sean's easier for them to promote. It's the better person for them to promote, and there's always politics involved. But I won't say that it's dirty necessarily. But I do think it was a bad decision. I think Jan won with as many takedowns as he got, as much control time he had, plus times that he either dropped Sean or like dropped him or dazed him to the point where he did eventually get dropped. I think that he should have easily won at least 2 of those rounds. One round I could see maybe like it could be argued, but the other 2, I think it was 1 and 3. I don't think there was an argument at all. I think Jan won those straight up. And I just think back to my own Macy Barber fight, and I'm like, Abu Dhabi sucks. Sorry.
You mentioned in a previous interview that you did. Obviously, as a journalist, I had to watch hundreds of interviews of you. And honestly, Miranda, I've been following you before you were in the UFC. I worked for shout out mymmanews.com, which was a huge supporter of you coming up over the last handful of years. And I gotta say, going into this one, it's like, I got to do all this research. And I recently heard you say that there should be something changed with judging. Like you would like to see more retired fighters be judges, correct? Is that the way this is fixed?
Yeah, if that was an option, I think that would be an easy way to do it, because they see it as mixed martial arts instead of bringing these referees from boxing or referees that have done jiu-jitsu tournaments or whatever it is, right? Like there's such a range of people who do I didn't mean to say referees, I meant judges, but there's such a range of judges that we have from other combat sports that aren't doing the MMA research. And there's also not a good scoring system. I think it helped a little bit, like being able to see like how judges score each round. Now that's like helpful.
Invicta, right? Invicta tried out the open scoring for a little bit, which you're familiar with, Shanna app, obviously, with the big phone call you got years ago. But yeah, it's totally weird. I've asked so many fighters about this. They said maybe judges should be set in the back. Are you guys aware of who's judging your fight beforehand or no?
No, I have no idea who's judging my fight beforehand. And I think I know this sounds super immature, but take away phones, take away any distractions that they could have in the meantime. Because part of me is like, when you watch the fights over again, you'll sometimes just see them looking down, like you
looking
can see
at
the judges
getting into a fight in the crowd
or whatever it is. And I'm like, what are you watching? Like, it is your job to stare for 15 minutes or 25, whatever it is, and watch the fight. And I joke, I'm like, did they think Macy was me the whole time? I don't know. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Because Macy has a little sister too, yeah. Now, there's another question here from Daniel Bakley for people listening to the audio podcast. Obviously, they can't see us here on YouTube, so make sure to go over to Belly Up Sports and subscribe. Also on Comat Deviants. Daniel Bakley asked, how do you feel about TJ Dillashaw going into the fight with a separated shoulder that popped out 20 times over the last 2 months? Should he have been pulled from the fight, knowing the issue? Miranda, what's your response?
I think absolutely he should have. Like, it showed heart that he made it all the way through, but we didn't know that information while that was happening. Obviously, everybody just knew his shoulder was messed up in the fight, and we knew something was wrong right away. We were like, well, he's not throwing back with the left hand. He's not even able to post on it.
He's not on Embedded?
We were like,
huh? He wasn't on UFC Embedded for some reason?
Yeah, right. What's going on? And it's like, I don't know if they have medical, like, proof of that or whatever. Like, fighters always say I have this injury the whole time during camp and all that. But if that's the case, like, who let him fight? That's stupid. That's just dumb. Like, you've already been waiting so long to get back into the game and everything. Why would you jeopardize it by doing that unless he's retiring?
At 36, too. At 36, nonetheless. And it's a huge thing because Aaron Pico, who also trains with him under their coach Cal, he also had a dislocated shoulder as well. So what would you say to people out there to, train smarter or go and not take a fight like this? Like, if you were in the situation, what would your coaches be saying, even if it was a title fight?
Yeah, they'd obviously be like, listen, the opportunity is going to come knocking again, especially if you're not in the last fight of your contract or in risk of being cut. It's like, take your time, like, heal up, 2 months of healing is not worth your entire career or a loss on your record that puts you back another year or two. And they've done that before. You know, I've had to pull out of fights before for some reasons that I didn't even want to pull out, right? The eye surgery a day before I was supposed to fight. The first time,
with the
like
non-COVID related things. Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff happens, and you've just got to be smart about it and make your best decision. I never really fault anybody for being sick and pulling out of fights in that fashion. It is what it is, and we don't always get to know what the case is. So just respect it and go on and hope for the best. But yeah, in that
one
situation,
of those things where you know Dana's not happy about how that played out. Like, you know, TJ keeping that from them, not saying anything. You know, obviously, you know, Eddie said, you know, he noticed some red flags with him not being on embedded and things of that nature. So it's like you have some red flags there, and I think you know, moving forward, Dana's going to be a little bit more prudent checking for pre-existing injuries.
Yeah, but you can't do that. Like it makes it sound easy, but it's not like they have a medical team come and just show up.
Michael Bisping with one eye, right?
On top of everything else that you guys have to do getting ready for a fight.
Yeah, I mean, we go through medicals, pretty extensive medicals, really. So it's like if nobody catches it or says anything, it's kind of hard, especially if it's a pulled out shoulder that you put back in and it feels fine in 2 days. It's like, what do you do about it? It's hard to catch that unless somebody's honest about it. But yeah, I think it's the coach's responsibility to kind of step in then. And then on top of that, like you shouldn't be training live 24/7 to where that's even an issue, you know, heal up and then take care of it. The fact that it happened 20 times and you didn't stop and let it heal, like that's stupid on your part. Like the fool me once joke, you know.
What their camp is kind of known for at this point in time, just going way beyond the point of sensible training, I guess I would call it.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple people. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of these things. It's sad, but it's one of these things where like we're going where he comes from, knowing that camp is like, do we expect anything else from them at this point in time?
Right.
Now, Miranda, I'm going to throw something right at your face here. There's a quote out there that says, Miranda, I'll F you wherever you want to be F'd. Who said this to you?
That was Molly, you know. I feel like I'm ready for it. Let's go.
Now, you also said that you didn't think she deserved to be ranked. You were talking about rankings before. You thought you deserved to be ranked. What's the deciding factor in being a ranked fighter, and why doesn't Molly deserve that?
Who has she fought? Nobody even knows their names.
Nobody knows your name. No,
it's like she hasn't fought anybody that's anywhere close to the rankings. Her last win that they're like, oh, she got another flying elbow, was against Hannah Goldie, who's not even a 125er. It just makes me mad that fight even happened. It's like, yeah, of course you would take that fight over fighting me or whoever else you were offered. She's a 115er who you can outpower, bully, and kind of do whatever you want to. And Hannah Goldie's already on her way out. Like, I like Hannah just fine, but it was a stupid fight as far as, I mean, it was purely meant to promote Molly, and that's exactly what it did. Nobody even knew her name for the last 5 years until Patty came up. And now here she is, got 2 spinning elbows on 2 girls that she shouldn't have even, like, they're good fights to start with, but that's all they are, is good starter fights. Like how she got ranked is just insane to me. She's lost against anybody, in my opinion, that had any kind of solid record or solid talent. And her only talent, her only technique that she walks into a fight with, and I know I'm hated across all of Instagram by all the Molly fans. Man, I get all the shit. They're like, how dare you even think you should step into a cage with her? She'll beat you up. I'm like, show me a technique she uses beyond brawl. I see the word brawl when I watch her fight. That's it. She's not good at jiu-jitsu. She's not good at striking. She's not good at anything other than swinging.
She's throwing daggers tonight.
Yeah, right. So say, for instance, right, Jillian Robertson had that fight with her. I interviewed Jillian before that fight. She called it out. It was a huge win for Jillian. When it comes to something that really pissed you off, because that really pissed Meatball Molly off, that Jillian was saying that she was going to get this win on Molly's debut, that really ticked her off. Is this quote one of the biggest things that has ever ticked you off ever? And when do you want this fight?
No, it didn't even tick me off. I wouldn't even say that. I'd say, like, don't say that unless you're going to fight me. And if you're not going to take the fight, then keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I've asked to have that fight before she ever said that. She's the one who didn't take the fight. She wants to act like I just called her out and like I didn't take it. Like, that's ridiculous. I had been asking for that fight before she ever did that and got me clout, as people want to say. I had already called her out.
You got the meatball sauce.
Right.
Sauce, right?
My coaches joke that I'm a meathead in the gym and the meathead should fight meatball, but we'll see. I respect her in terms of as a person. I know nothing about her in terms of disliking her in any form or fashion. I know that she was under the influence basically when she was saying those things. But I just want the fight. If she'll fight me, we're all good to go, and all respect to her. I'll be ready to share the cage with her.
Now, I kind of little off subject, but on subject with somebody like me who has battled addictions like opiates before in the past, 7 years without a needle in my arm. You're talking about Meatball Molly under the influence and stuff like that. Have you ever had any bad routines in your life that you've struggled with, even if it's just eating too many cupcakes or something, or texting your boyfriend when he doesn't want to be bothered, or taking dad's remote too much and putting on your own shows? Have you ever battled something like that?
I've never had like addiction problems at all. I'm very proud to say that. Like, that's a genetic thing as well. So it's not like I had anything that I had to fight. I wouldn't say that was something that gave me adversity throughout my life. I have faced stress.
Wait, Miranda, I got to stop you. Sociology, psychology, I was so interested in. I agree with you 100% when with that statement saying that it goes in your genetics. What really makes you believe in that, though?
I think it's a nature versus nurture. Like, both play a role. There's the nurture. Like, if I was around people who drank all the time and smoked all the time and did drugs, like, no doubt I would have tried it. No doubt they're addictive, and I probably would have became addicted. But there's also literal genetics. Like, certain people are easily addicted or easily persuaded by addictive properties than others. Like, I know that just from my husband, for instance, with caffeine. Like, I can take caffeine and then not take it again for 2 months, and he'll just be like, caffeine, and like, that's not even a bad thing necessarily, but it's still addicting. And people are like, it's not an addictive property. And I'm like, that does not mean you can't be addicted to it. There's the addictive behavior and there's the addictive property of a chemical. Like, and so
you're saying it goes to your family belief system in a way, right?
Part of it can, like, that's one aspect of it, but the other is pure chemical. Like, we all have different neurotransmitters in our brain. We all are built different ways, and certain chemicals have more of an influence on us than others. It's just how it is. It's like saying, like, why do I get depressed when my sister gets angry? The same kind of thing. It's like, it's genetics and like just the way the brain is wired. So I think me being away from addicted things helped a lot with me not having those problems, but also just genetics.
So influence for sure. But if I was your doctor and you're like, doc, you versus me, right? If I was your doc and you came to me and you were like, doc, I get such bad anxiety before these fights. It's something, in life that I have to deal with for my job. I get such bad anxiety. I need Xanax. And then there's me, anxiety with whatever on my daily day, just like yours to get through the day. What makes a big difference for something like anxiety to be prescribed and taken care of versus anxiety to be taken care of by yourself?
I think there's a limit of it, right? There's clinical anxiety, that's a big thing. And then there's not clinical prescribed anxiety. And usually that's like a lower level. And I'll use the example of ADHD, right? It's almost a popular thing to say that somebody's ADHD nowadays. And it makes me angry, because I'm like, none of these, I would say 90% of the kids that get called ADHD just need a good ass whooping, right? And it's like others, he raised his hand, and 10% legitimately have ADHD. They have a problem with focus. They cannot focus, or they have some kind of OCD type of behaviors. But most just literally were never told, like, you do that one more time and I'll whoop your ass. Like, it's true. I was like, yeah, my little sister, maybe she'll talk about it at some point. When she was younger, she would always she's like one of those people that a butterfly flew by and she'd be like, butterfly, and we'd always joke with her to get her head out of space, or quit thinking of jelly beans, we'd joke with her. And it's called growing up. And after a few years and getting in trouble for it a couple times, she doesn't do that. Like, it didn't happen anymore. It was never a problem. And those same people, if you have different parenting skills and you just say, oh, they just can't focus. And you make that kid think that they can't focus. And then the kid goes, wow, I'm getting sympathy from not being able to focus too. Boom, we have ADHD generation.
Wow. What an answer for that one. You absolutely nailed that. Now, obviously you do have anxiety though, right? How do you deal with your anxieties? Maybe your answer could help somebody like me.
Yeah. So for me, because I know psychology and sociology, and I've taken clinical classes, the idea of therapists and things like that, I would try to outthink them. And I'm aware of that. I would be like, I know why you're asking me that question, you manipulative person. Like, it'd make me angry. I'd be like, this isn't helping me because I'm overthinking every question they're giving me, right? And I don't trust them or whatever else. And so for me, I've kind of found my own solutions to things. And it's just been like I was talking about the focus, like don't focus on the negatives, focus on positives. I write down my feelings sometimes when I get really bad. I pray and I'll write.
You draw too, correct?
What?
You draw a lot too,
yeah,
correct?
So I do that to kind of give myself peace. And everybody has different things, whether it's going and listening to music, playing an instrument, going outside and taking a walk. Like these are all things that I've suggested to people that have worked. And like I go out in nature a lot. If I'm like, listen, my week has been so hard, got this many hours of training and this many hours of work. I'm nonstop exhausted. I feel sick to my stomach. I'm so tired and stressed. And it's like, forget it. They will all be there when I get back. I'm going for a walk, or I'm going to just take a half a day off and freaking go for a hike there. Same calories burned as an exercise. Yeah, I'm not training martial arts, but my mind's getting a lot better. And you've got to just give yourself mental breaks. And that's different for everybody. Maybe somebody hates being outside and the bugs and the weather and everything else. Like sit inside and watch a movie. It doesn't matter what it is. Find something to get your mind off of it. And if meditation or prayer is your thing, like I find for me, like I'm religious, I'm a Christian. I find that just praying and like calling out, Jesus's name basically helps me when I'm in my deepest, darkest times. And I've had like panic attacks and things of that nature that get really dark, get really bad. And you go down this downward spiral of just feeling like crap, right? And feeling like there's no way out. And you've got to find your own way out. And I will say my husband's been very helpful for that. Just having someone around. It doesn't matter who it is or who they are to you. It could be a sibling, a friend, somebody you don't even know that's a stranger that you trust, right? Like get somebody that will empathize rather than kind of throw you under the bus or blame you or make you feel guilty for it, which is kind of where I struggled to have help initially. Is I felt so bad for having these problems because I was like, look at all these blessings I have in front of me. Look at all these opportunities I've had. Look at where I'm at in life. Like I'm successful. I'm supposed to be this inspiration, this example. And here I am going down this downward spiral and not being grateful for everything I have when I have everything that I could ever want. And it's like, man, I'm a shitty human. And that makes it feel even worse, and then you go down and down and down. And you've just got to pull yourself out of that false reality that you're in, basically. Like think about yourself looking something through here and you see it this way, but everybody else sees it all these other ways. And you've got to just pull yourself out of it.
And sometimes Ronda into that mix, right? Ronda Rousey, when she returned against Amanda Nunes, do you think she was really sick of the sport, or was she afraid to come back? And if you were, Ronda's doctor or friend, what would you say to somebody going through something like Ronda was? Would you say that was fear, or really she just really didn't have it in her anymore? How did you?
I mean, who am I to say? Like some people are sick of it, and looking at Ronda's situation, I'm happy for her, and I think she made the best decision she could have ever made for her career. Here she is making tons more money than she ever made in the UFC, even though she was like the star child of the UFC, basically. I guarantee she's making 10 times that now in the WWE, and she's not getting hurt. She can spend time with her family, like all these things that UFC would have just not allowed for the kind of lifestyle that she gets to have now. So it's like, no matter what the cause of her being out of it was, I'm like, hey, she made whatever decision was best for her. And if it was a scare,
well, I think she kind of feels like completely separated from the MMA community since her leaving, and I think the way the wrestling community's kind of embraced her in other ways that the MMA community didn't, kind of has also kind of I guess spread that wedge between her love of combat sports and her love of pro wrestling. Because let's be honest, she always had pro wrestling in her.
Whoa, you pushed your phone like your boyfriend.
Oh my goodness, I know. I'm about to. My battery's gonna go dead soon too, so I've been checking it. That's why I keep.
All right, we got you.
So yeah, we'll get to like the last few because we're already like at the 49-minute mark.
Okay, no big deal. But yeah, it's hard to say because obviously she got pretty beat up in that fight. Everybody was giving her a bunch of shit. The one versus Holly Holm too, and it's like, so what? Here's my thing: is who cares? Like, if you can't strike as good as them, like, you still were such a pioneer in the sport, and people that are like, oh, look at that, she's trash, she couldn't strike very good. I'm like, one, she wasn't trash, she was the top like 2 in the world, so shut up.
Yeah.
2, you're always going to find something negative to say, and I think her biggest problem was embracing the negativity, and it almost made it more widespread, right? Like, I used to do the same thing when I started my career, and like, people always like, you look like a dude, you're too muscular to be natural, like all this stuff when I was younger and was pretty body like sensitive, I guess you'd say. Like, I was always like, I don't want to wear a sports bra, I don't want to show my muscles, like all this stuff I would get really upset from. And now I'm like, F you guys, like, I have fans that
you're rocking it out here though.
That's right. That's right. And I'm like, now it's like an inspiration to people more than anything. And I'm like, I don't care what you say. Like, I've got a husband who I think is gorgeous. I've got my life figured out, and I'm as fit as I've ever been. And if you don't like the way that looks, then great, go somewhere else. Go look at the Victoria's Secret models.
Speaking of Victoria's Secret models, I got one last question for you here. Obviously, it's October, my favorite month of the year. You know, people say violent video games and movies, they increase or maybe they even decrease real life violence. How does MMA play a role in that? Does it increase or decrease real life violence?
I really think that children, I wouldn't say just MMA, but like combat sports in general, that get involved with combat sports and martial arts at a young age are typically less violent. One, they learn how to control themselves, learn how to have discipline, and learn how to handle situations without the violence. And I know that's counterintuitive to people who don't understand the sport, but if I was to get in a fight with a random chick at a bar, let's say, I'm not going to beat the crap out of her. I'm going to be able to just put her on the ground gently and be like, just chill here for a few minutes until somebody else shows up. Like, there is no need for violence, but it's better to know how to be violent in case the time comes where you have to be, right? And there's that old phrase where it's like, a man that knows violence is better than a man who creates violence, or whatever it is. And I'm like, I very much so agree with that. Like, somebody who knows some aspect of martial arts and can defend themselves and those around them without actually using violence until it's necessary, and then being able to restrain someone, I think that goes into up here too, right? It allows you to control your violent side. It allows you to control your anger more and be able to handle it in a more disciplined way. And I know that's not always true. Like, we have people who are abusers in MMA and stuff like that. And a lot of the times that's egos attached to it, right? Times when they're like, I'm the biggest, baddest person on the planet and nobody's going to tell me otherwise. And all it takes.
Call me Meatball, by the way.
What?
And call me Meatball. They call me Meatball, by the way.
And even guys, you know, they've gotten in trouble for domestic abuse and stuff like that. It's like, it happens and it's sad, but it's not any more than the typical population. It just gets more put out there because they are MMA fighters and are able to obviously inflict violence more than others.
Well, I guess I will get my last few on here before we get ready to wrap it up and let you go, Miranda. Since Eddie's already bringing up Halloween and things of that nature, obviously Halloween's Monday. What's your favorite Halloween type movie? You know, regardless if it's horror movie, spooky movie,
Halloween movie,
goofy Halloween, cartoon Halloween movie. You know, what's your go-to around this time of year?
Oh man, I don't even have a go-to. I know that sounds bad, but when I was young, so I will tell you a little bit about Halloween though. My sister's birthday is on Halloween.
Wow.
And so we never really watch movies or anything. We celebrate her birthday. And how we do that at home, because we always lived in the middle of nowhere, so there was no trick-or-treating when I was young, which was fine. Like, my dad would rather us stay at home away from people anyway, like stranger-wise and danger. But when I was at home as a youth, we would always get dressed up and stuff, but we play family games on Halloween. Like we'll do tug of war and play like egg races and three-legged race and just everybody in the family. And now
who's the team for tug of war though? You and your sister versus dad and mom? Or?
Oh, it's usually dad versus the world. That's usually
I bet it's your boyfriend. Your boyfriend's jacked. He'll take on your whole family.
So this year was the best we ever did because we had Pete. Okay, it really evened some playing fields. And my brother is actually a monster now too. He's a monster for himself. Like he's a freak athlete. If he wanted to do MMA, he could, but he's a big enough boy that we're like, you'd get hurt before you even got to the pros. Like you go after another career path. You've got so many opportunities ahead of you. But he was a phenomenal wrestler, and he could have been a combat sports athlete if he wanted to.
Yeah,
but
I already said that I kind of feel like you guys are the next, I guess power sibling, in combat sports. Eddie was kind of touching on it earlier. Before we get ready to let you go there, Miranda, well, what we typically do is kind of throw the proverbial microphone over to you. Anyone would like to thank trainer partners, teammates, shoot out their social media sites, any sponsors you may have, anything you're doing outside of combat sports you want to let anyone know about. The time is yours, my friend.
Thank you very much. So first, I'd like to thank my family. I'd like to thank God, of course, my husband, my team especially. I'm 1 week out from my fight. I feel better prepared than ever. All my teammates that have came up to help me with this fight, my coaches who have been supportive all the way through, showing up for all my trainings, helping me get better every single day. And I'd also like to thank my sponsors all the way from like helping with my meal prep and helping with the drinks that I'm able to take and everything that's nutrition worthy to make my body in shape to the best potential. Thank you to them. Thank you to my sponsors who helped fund my career. I still have openings for sponsors if anyone's interested, all the way from social media posts to hanging posters, wall kind of thing. And then I also have fearthemaverick.net where you can buy gear that's personalized for my merchandise. And I also have patreon.com/fearthemaverick. And that's basically just technique videos. I've got pictures on there, like all kinds of things. That's exclusive content that I don't post anywhere else if you guys are interested.
And when is your fight going down, and what can people expect, lastly?
November 5th against Shanna Young at the Apex in Vegas. It is going to be a redo of a canceled bout from August 20th. So excited to be doing that. And I'm hoping for a first round finish. Not sure how it's going to go down exactly, but be looking for a lot of the mix of the martial arts and me to be throwing some power in there.
Thank you so much, Miranda, for joining us on Combat Deviants with Steve and Eva Letty. We wish you nothing but the best of skill, which I stole that line from Steve growing up over the years. And thank you so much for some of your answers tonight that will really help a lot of our listeners, including myself. I'll definitely take this interview to heart with how genuine you are, not just as a fighter, but as a person. But you got to stop pushing your boyfriend down mountains. We wish you nothing but the best. And
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And if anybody ever needs to reach out about stuff like that, I hope I can be an inspiration, at least give some level of advice. I like to say that I try to help everybody as much as I can. I don't always respond on social media, but I do my best to respond to fans and people who just reach out to me in general, as long as it's not weird stuff. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon if you reach out.
All right, Miranda. Appreciate the time as always. Best of skill, and we'll definitely have you back on here again in the future.
All right. Thanks, guys.
God bless.
All right, everyone. That was Miranda Fear the Maverick. And it's definitely going to be a fun one watching her run that one back. Like I said, I would not be surprised if her I guess light prediction comes to fruition, so to speak. But yeah, definitely looking forward to
that's what we love on these podcasts, right? Our predictions like that. You have a fighter that's going in a rematch. She's not going to do the same thing she did in the last fight. She's going to do something different, which is such an inspiration, Steve. I loved her answer for that. So it was such a pleasure.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one. And yeah, she should be ranked out. I'm looking forward to seeing what 2023 holds in store for her. Obviously, this is early November, so hopefully hopefully she starts getting she gets a big win here, and maybe gets put on that big February card. Maybe gets put
That's
on
the thing, Steve. She hasn't been on that many big cards. I would love to see her on a bigger card.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I would like to see her kind of get the opportunity of getting out of the fight night kind of thing, and
exactly.
maybe putting her on the early prelims on the pay-per-view, or even the fight right before the main event of the preliminary fight, something of that nature. I think she deserves to be on one, and not buried fight night, or buried on other things. Hopefully she's able to string a few wins, and they can have she'll be headlining those fight nights instead of being on the undercard of them.
And she has exciting beef going on that's really natural. It's not pushed, right? With Molly.
Yeah, but here's the thing, as long as it's in a neutral place.
Exactly.
What a pleasure. Not. I mean, obviously, you're not going to see it in Miranda's backyard, but I'm just saying it absolutely cannot be in Molly's backyard. Cannot.
I mean, shooters take shots, right? And she's taken a couple of shots, man.
We'll see. Like I said, I felt like Miranda was throwing daggers tonight, poking holes in the validity of that ranking. But
for our listeners, Steve, we were talking about her sister. We want to get her sister on. We would love to know if you guys would like to see that.
Hopefully, hopefully I can get her on this weekend.
Skylar Maverick.
Yeah. We definitely got to get her on. Obviously, she fights the 11th. I mean, we technically could have her, on the 5th too. But we got a fun one. The rest of this week, obviously, you'll get a day break, and we got a big one Thursday night. We're gonna be joined by former boxing world champions. I guess we would say his widow at this point in time. Tommy Morrison's wife, Trisha Morrison, is going to be joining us, and she's got one hell of a story to lay on us. Any combat sports fan, boxing fans, etc., who has an affinity for Tommy the Duke Morrison, or
Rocky V.
or Rocky V. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you check it out. We got a lot of questions to go over. I guarantee you we're going to be on longer than we are tonight, just because of some of the layers of the onions we're going to be peeling back.
Serious stuff. Most serious stuff ever in my career that will be unraveling, guys.
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, we're not going to let her dictate how it goes, but we definitely have a lot of questions about things where we want to.
And I've done a lot of research as well. This is one of the interviews where I've really put in a lot, Stephen. I thank you so much for this opportunity as well.
And then I didn't even get to Friday.
Oh God,
I didn't even get to Friday. Oh man, we got the one of the co-headliners for the one of the upcoming BKFCs in the middle of November. I can't tell you which one of them it is. Anyone who's been following me long enough that already knows that I already had one half of it, but I can't tell you who the other half is. I'm playing coy, dude. I'm not gonna break it down to you guys until Thursday night. Hopefully we put a few more things together, but
means subscribe and follow.
We just had Miranda on. I think she's gonna do really well. November 5th, UFC fight night. Guys, make sure you got your ESPN Plus subscription, your UFC Fight Pass subscription,
or DM me,
huh?
Or just DM me for.
Oh man, don't it. All right, guys. This was a fun one tonight. Obviously, this was a fighter spotlight special here on the Belly Up Sports Network here on Combat Deviants. We will be back for another spotlight. Obviously, this is an investigative report spotlight.
Oh man, I can't wait for it. And I know that you guys
how we word this one. It's definitely not a fighter spotlight, but obviously we got a few things lined up for you guys. Again, make sure you guys go like, subscribe, follow, not just Combat Deviants, but Belly Up Sports. Make sure you go check my man Evil Eddie out here on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure you're showing the love to the Combat Deviant pages as well. We got some giveaways planned for when we hit some of these milestones, both on social media and YouTube as well. So we got some fun stuff planned. For anyone who doesn't wind up catching us the rest of the week, make sure you guys have a happy Halloween. Stay safe. Make sure you get all the kids are good. Make sure you don't eat all the candy. Be very, very fair. And again, guys, appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you're checking out all the stuff on Belly Up Sports. I'm Steve. He's Eddie. This